A good evening, everyone. Good Wednesday evening to one and all, and welcome to Perspectives Prime. We're coming to you live this evening. Yes, we have an extra program, a Prime program. As you know, we are getting ready, Grenada, that is getting ready to host the third Apex cricket test, the series, that is, between the England and West Indies team. And of course, that's going to happen here at the National Stadium 1 week from today. Starts next Thursday. But the stadium needs to get ready. So it's our studio, so we're going to be kicked out for a while. But here we are bringing you this extra supersized program this evening of Perspectives. Wherever you are joining us this evening, we welcome you to the broadcast. All the broadcast entities carrying us live, we thank you so very much. MTV, beyond TV in a while, as the news is in progress. So TV will join us after, but I know we are on MTV's Facebook. We are also on Mikey Live, TNR Communications, Partygrenada, our Perspectives Facebook page, and of course we are also on KG9. And good evening, a special good evening to the folks in carriacou, Martinique, on Sister Ad Radio who are streaming us. I am here with our expert talk panel of Senator Christopher Deali and Mr. Byron Campbell. They've made it out from their homes this evening to sit in on this program with us. And later on, we'll introduce our special guest panelists for tonight, two foremost Grenadians of utmost excellence and candor and everything more. And we introduce them. That'll be Senator Chester Humphrey and Mr. Ambrose Phillip. But before we get to our guests, gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Brenda.
Yes.
And good evening to our viewers and listeners. It's a pleasure to be here on Perspectives Prime.
In the night.
In the night.
In the night.
I did get permission. And you see
That's important.
My
That's
co-host,
important.
is all splendidly dressed in a jacket on his
look
head.
at that.
I'm wondering where he's going after from here.
I have plans.
Oh yes. Yeah.
You have
Let's put it
plans?
that way, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Good evening.
You said that with a gleam in your eye.
It's true.
So
I
that
have
includes
plans,
Mrs.
yeah.
Campbell.
Yeah, I have a date with her, actually.
Wonderful.
Very good. Very good. It's a good thing.
I saw that
But-
gleam in the eye. I saw it.
But this is usually my bedtime, but I had a nap this afternoon, so
Right.
In preparation.
I'm alert.
Yeah.
I'm ready
Okay.
You know,
for a lot of politics, I hope, tonight. Yeah, I mean, I've been
I think we have.
begging for it.
I think our guests will give us
Oh,
enough
yeah,
to chew on,
yeah.
and our
Yes.
audience as well.
I look forward to
Yes,
this.
yes, we have. I think we have the right
Yeah.
panelists to help us through that this evening. But
Okay.
guys, just on the way here this evening, noticing that the Anglican High School had athletics at the stadium. It's just so good to see that athletics is back at the stadium.
Yeah.
Schools are going back. It's remarkable, and I think most of us this probably will be lost on a lot of folks, but it is so important that because of the industrial action of the teachers union prior to the pandemic,
yeah.
there are students who in Form 4 it's their first athletics, and maybe if we have intercol, it's probably going to be their first, and there will also be a cohort of students who would never have experienced an intercol.
The walk to
You
rule,
know,
the
yeah,
walk to rule
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
So it's quite interesting,
Yeah. I think it's a good thing for our students to understand what sports is, camaraderie, the competition.
And lots of parents went out.
And the discipline that goes with it,
Yes.
organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that you remember fondly when you were in secondary school,
Yes.
competing
Yes.
and
But just how the pandemic halted everything, and then we're trying to to
Yeah.
rise again. It really shows you the resilience of the human.
Yeah.
No matter what, we just have to keep picking it up and moving on.
But that was kind of the projection. 2 years, we begin to return to some normalcy.
yeah. Well, I mean, the Minister of Health announced on Tuesday that based on the trends and what is happening, if it continues as going, there will probably be a release on the 4th of April.
Release?
There'll be another announcement.
I like
Release
So that has implications
of the
for
mass.
Carnival. That has implications for Carnival, the
Of
vax
course.
thing. Yeah.
And of course, he mentioned the fact that they'll remove the distinction between vax and non-vax people
Right.
for entering certain
Right.
places and certain stuff.
Right.
So I suspect the entertainment industry, restaurants and so on is anxiously looking forward to that, as well as
The numbers for events.
and so on. So I mean, it's leading right up to cricket. When we had our last guest talking about cricket, we did ask that question.
Question, yes.
if that changes.
But April 4th.
April
cricket
4th is next week,
But
so
the Prime
I don't
Minister
know.
addresses the nation tomorrow.
Yes,
tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock.
I don't know if they'll make an exception for
don't
allowing
know.
vax and unvaxxed people, if they
To
will
go
talk to
into cricket.
CWI and find out what is happening, so that at least the test match could get more audience
Right.
and more cheering, because I mean test match traditionally doesn't get huge
You
audience.
see, I think we have a template, so to speak, with the sporting events that has happened recently. We had the national champs, the Arise the national champs on the weekend, and everyone was mixed into the national
Yeah.
stadium.
Yeah.
We had Anglican High School at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium today as well, and they were mixed in. So I think there is some merit for it.
I mean, I saw they put up a dashboard today, and this is almost 2 weeks since after carriacou Carnival, and the dashboard indicated, I think, was 5 cases, and so on, which again speaks to the fact that, you know, there is some level of control, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
The
Containment.
CMO was on the news this evening talking about the reason why they don't put out this dashboard every day, because it doesn't change very much over 2-3 days, so they're going to reduce maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So they're really pleased with the numbers. But again, what he reiterated was we should focus on vaccinating, that we are at 33%, and this is a third. This is low, so the question of vaccination remains a priority for the administration.
And that's
for
valid,
everybody,
because as we see things change in the
Yeah.
Far East and across the world, we still have to keep it top of mind that it has
Yeah,
not
we
gone
say-
away.
Look at China.
You know,
China is locking down
we
2
cannot
cities.
use language like the pandemic is over.
No.
It's not over.
I
We
mean,
are
Hong Kong
emerging.
have serious issues.
We
as
are
well.
emerging. Yes, Hong Kong. It is
yeah.
very serious there.
yeah.
We are emerging out of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
the vaccination message is still
Well, you know,
very, very
Brenda,
critical.
personally, I am going to continue wearing my mask and sanitizing because I am, you know, I think the mask not only helps us with the COVID, but I'm a sinus person, and since I've been wearing my mask, my sinus have been under control. So
Always
the mask,
keep mine very close.
Yes, the mask
Yeah.
prevents other things as well.
Yeah.
So there is benefit to having it still, and I am still cautious because we still
Yes.
I think they have a new one, Delcron, the Delta and the Omicron. Delcron, and you hear now other variants coming through the pipe and
Right.
calling it all kind of
So
strange
don't drop
names.
your guard.
Yeah.
No, I'm not dropping, and that's the point.
That's the point,
I don't
yeah.
think we should drop our guard, and
Yeah.
we should continue to. I think Guyana just recently eased all the restrictions.
removed all.
Right,
Yeah.
but they're still telling you that they encourage businesses and other places to sanitize and have people wear their masks
Right,
and so on, because there is.
legislatively the government removed the restrictions, but private sector and all of that, there may be some businesses that really liked how this worked for them,
Yeah.
and they can say to you that you have to wear masks to come into their business,
Yeah.
even if the legislation have been removed. It's up to you if you
Yeah.
want to do
So the
business with
focus-
them. It's maybe a thing that works for the business.
So the focus now
you may
is-
still have that.
The focus now is personal responsibility.
It always
Take
was.
personal responsibility. That's a focus
Always
for
was.
your health
Yeah, but
and mitigating.
It's going to be touch and go for us in business because you know,
Yeah.
customer comes and
Yeah.
you say, well, we require you to wear masks. They say, well, the law says I don't have to wear masks.
And
the
you know
business-
our people, you could see us
Yeah.
getting into tussles with the security
Yeah.
guards
Correct,
and people,
correct. And then the business will get bad
tell you.
reputational risk in terms
Yeah.
of we saying, well, you know, go somewhere else
But
and
at
so
the
on.
end
So
of the
it's-
day, you know,
it's going to be a touch and go
yeah,
for
I
us. in
think it
business.
should be a discretionary thing.
Yeah,
And if
it is.
people want to wear their mask, they wear it.
But the risk is still there for us. You could still come in and we could get infected and people could go home and, you know, absenteeism and the whole productivity issue can still be around.
Yeah, but the argument
So,
might
you know.
be it's kind of like when we catch a cold too, and all of us are away from work.
Yeah, that's going to be the argument. And just in this case, this cold could kill
Just
you.
throwing
Well,
that
the
fork
ordinary
in.
cold could kill you anyway.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, it's one of those
Yeah,
things.
it's one of those
It's going to
things.
be it's going
Yeah.
to be some adjustments as we go forward.
In a general sense, though, it just feels like if we're turning the corner, and that feels good, and that
Agreed.
feels hopeful, and that is a kind of renewed
Yeah.
sort of thing, you know. Yeah, that's how it feels. I don't think we would ever go back to 2019, we won't go back there.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
well.
no, when I say that, I mean how our lives were.
Yeah.
You know, so we
Yeah.
just have to it's almost like we're in a new world.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, countries can't afford
Yeah.
the lockdowns again. That's for
No.
sure.
That's for
Yeah.
sure,
The
yeah.
economies doesn't have the
Decimated.
economy. Yeah, can't
Yeah.
afford it, and I don't know if the world could afford it
No.
in terms of the projected growth internationally and so on. We're all suffering from this thing, and it's one of those things that I don't think any country wants to go there because of the effects
Yes.
on everything.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we're trying to normalize, and normalize. We have lived with other diseases in our life, so this is one that.
But there's several upside of COVID in terms of product. Working from home, for example, less physical travel. I think that's a big deal, really.
Well,
how the use of technology became widespread, because there was a generation that we completely left out of this thing, and we had to bring them in. I mean, people, you had senior managers struggling to use Zoom and all of that, and now that's where they want to be. So all these things.
But I have my pluses and minuses with the Zoom and the platforms and so on, all the various platforms. I mean, yes, it's a good, you see the need, you save costs, all of that and so on. But I think, face-to-face has its advantage.
Best interaction
and what you can say with your body language, face-to-face, you can't say it.
It's true.
On the various platforms. So,
and to look someone in the eye across from a meeting, to look them in the eye, to feel their energy, to get what they're saying from their body and from their eyes without what's coming out their mouth. That's still very important.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I, for example, I'm a mediator. We do mediations by Zoom totally, we're not doing face-to-face. And it takes away a lot from it, because as a mediator, one of the things you have to learn to do is read the other sides and what's happening,
body
and
language,
understanding when to break, when not to break, and so on. So that's a critical part of it. And with Zoom, you don't get that as when you're face-to-face. So it has its pluses and its minuses. So it's one of those things I think we have to.
We kind of all zoomed out right now.
Be flexible as we go forward. It's one of those things.
Yeah, we really have to. We really have to.
We are Caribbean people. We socialize to interact and meet and touch.
So nature, very much.
Yeah, life is a beach is a negative for us, and life is a beach is the way we live. It's who we are. That's just who we are.
Carnival is about everything about coming together and gyrating and touching. And,
it is.
That's what it is.
A whole milieu of getting together
and
just having a real good
socialization time. With how we interact, we eat, we drink, we celebrate food, we celebrate dance. It's all about that.
It's who we are.
It's face to face. So
who we are.
It's something that.
It's not bacchanal. It's who we are.
I think Grenada is a spice, as Brenda likes to say.
Oh Lord, I tell you.
So, but I want to think about the war and the effects of the war and inflation on the economy.
Well, look, I mean,
can I comment on these things?
We'll get soon. We need to just a quick comment was to bring our guests in.
Understand that this war, in my view, is the most dangerous conflict that we've had since, I would say, going back to the Cuban crisis, in terms of as an international war that has potential for a global war or a world war. Escalation, So it's a big deal in terms of the implications for the world and certainly ourselves. And we're gonna feel it here, certainly from the economic point of view, from agriculture point of view, in terms of the price of commodities globally. I mean, oil, fuel, energy generally. Inflation, and we don't know yet. We're still we don't know if we're in the middle, the end, which part of it, where we are. So this is, and I mean, I see the war from the point of view, who benefits? I always ask this question, who benefits? So when you hear the U.S. approves $13+ billion of this is the war industry, this money is going to, So understand that who's benefit. Some persons promote war, indirectly, because they benefit from it.
It's a business, also business.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
that and more we'll examine when we take a break and come back. And our special guest panelists will join us here on the program. We take a break. We'll be right back on Perspectives Prime.
Yeah.
Never in my wildest dreams would I have anticipated an Olympic Games during a pandemic. As if preparations weren't tough enough, coronavirus became a new hurdle for me to overcome. And hurdling is not even my event. Nevertheless, I accepted my fate. There was so much to achieve and so many people counting on me. I had to do what I had to do. And one of those necessary steps was getting vaccinated. not only to protect myself and my loved ones, but also because I was determined to secure another win for my country. Not even a pandemic would get in the way of that mission. I know my people well, and I know that the determination I possess is not a trait unique to just myself. It's in every Grenadian, the will to overcome and that desire to win. The fact of the matter is that if we as a people intend to come out of this pandemic victorious, we too must do what is necessary. We must follow the protocols, such as social distancing, wearing a mask properly. We must listen to the experts. We can make certain lifestyle changes to boost our health, like exercising regularly, eating the right foods. And also, we must strongly and absolutely consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19 and its variants. As someone who is vaccinated, I feel confident in being home, being able to participate and run again. And that's my dream, to see families running on the beaches again, to see children running on the playgrounds, shopkeepers running their businesses, bus drivers running the roads, and the love and happiness running through the heart and spirit of us all Grenadians. There's no one solution, but if we take the necessary steps, we will get back on our feet and we will get running again.
Welcome home.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
We're now in the same time zone, so welcome to the broadcast. And this evening, it's a pleasure for us to introduce our special guest panelist, Senator Chester Humphrey. He is here with us this evening, and we are expecting to join us sometime during the broadcast, Mr. Ambrose Phillip. But we'll start off with Senator Humphrey. He's here, and when Mr. Phillip joined us, so once he joins us, we hope we can bring him in and have the discussion. Senator Humphrey, good evening. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule. It's always a pleasure to have you on the panel.
Well, good evening, Ms. Batiste, Senator Diali, and Campbell. Nice being here. It has been quite an interlude of months since I was last here. Yeah.
That is correct.
Do I detect a scheduling complaint?
No. I think it's an invitation issue.
Oh, it's an invitation issue. Yeah. I like it. Well, if you put it that way, we accept. All right, producer? Senator Humphrey, we'd just like to go out to sea a bit before we bring it back home. And that is on international front. Just before we took the break, Senator Diali did raise, Mr. Campbell, the question of the war and the global economic impact in particular of this war in Ukraine and how it would flow through the main channels. Things like higher prices for commodities like food and energy and you know, all of that. The neighboring economies how our trade will be disrupted and the supply chains, even remittances and all of that. You know, how serious should we on this side take this war and view this, and just what the impact will be for us?
Well, from that aspect of the topic of discussion, we seem to have gone back in an earlier part of the cycle. Because remember the last pandemic of a global scope of this. Of course, this is far worse than 1918, right? When we had that influenza pandemic, which they creatively called the Spanish flu, although it emerged on a farm in Kansas. But the Americans at that time was able to influence the world to change the name so that they could keep the stigma away from them. And soon thereafter, well, you know, we were in war, 1914 war. The world is now seemed to be on the edge, fact, well, not on the edge, there's no war in Europe. And then after that, we got the Great Depression. And the entire world economy was plummeted in a great crisis. And international capitalism was tottering on the brink of collapse, with hundreds of thousands, millions of people out of work and starving, right? Dreaded winters and so on. And it would seem that the cycle has re-engaged because the principal features are: one, a growing crisis in the world economy, triggered first by the pandemic, coming on the heels of the financial and economic crisis of 2008. So we are seeing a very shortened cycle of the crisis of international capital, right? And the war in Europe will have, because of the areas that are involved in this war, there are two fundamental elements of the modern global international capital economy, of which we are a part. And just let me divert for a moment for us to understand, because it has implications for us. That economy was premised, designed, and built on, in the earlier century, native genocide and African enslavement. So they have fashioned a world economy that has perpetuated persistent poverty and a crisis of distribution. So on the one hand, you have the principal contradiction in the capitalist system very much to the fore, in that you have increasing concentrations of wealth, right? And at the same time, you have a greater socialization in the production process, with the world's most two populous countries at the center now of almost all of mankind's consumer production. We're talking now about China, and we're talking now about India, and then you have other sub-countries in Southeast Asia, and so on.
Right.
So we are, in a sense, in a repeat. What is at stake here are the two most fundamental elements of the world economic system. All right? And those two elements are: one, energy, of which Russia is a major player, and it's a provider of a significant amount of energy resources for Western Europe. And then you have food. And because they have built a system of inequality and of perpetual poverty, and every time we make an attempt, genuinely so, to find a way out of this system of inequality that has been imposed on the world, they put us back in the net. So we found a way in the international financial system to make a decent level of income and independence from offering offshore banking services for an economy that has been global. They clamped that down. We find another way in getting investment capital by utilizing the need for the world to travel. In a modern economy, the travel market is a major driver of international economics. You can't have international capital development in the way in which the world knows it if you don't have travel. It's key, right? And we have found a way to make earnings from that, because they have stifled us in our commodities market. Our commodities market has been designed through the World Bank and others to impose that poverty on us. And there's a very good documentary on what had happened to the onion industry in Jamaica in those days in the 70s when they used the World Bank, which is an instrument of international capital, right, to keep you in line and so on and so on and so forth. And well, that is another arena of struggle, and they are going against China, And there's a lot of propaganda about how China is taking over the world without a bullet and all of that kind of stuff. It is simply part of their contest in order to maintain an order in the world which was built on African enslavement and native genocide. So we enter this situation here, and that war in Europe will have a devastating effect because these are two crucial elements, food and energy.
Yeah, because I'm just going to say now, going back to the growing pressures with the energy, right? And we see what is happening with grain and wheat and you mentioned food. I mean, and metals too. Yeah, there are some metals are now,
rare metals.
Yeah.
There's some rare metals.
And so just how, I mean, and we just kind to catch a breath, for want of a better word.
Yes, and it's one crisis after the next.
Yeah.
What worries me is that our population is not sufficiently prepared for that tsunami that's coming. You remember when the financial and economic crisis started in 2008?
Yeah.
At that time, I was president at TAU, and I remember when we convened our General Council meeting in October of 2008. And we made an analysis and determined that that coming storm, there was one thing that the workers' movement needed to do. It needed to give priority to saving jobs. And you remember it took a while all the banks on Wall Street and things were failing and insurance companies going under and so on Wall Street. That wave did not get to us until the beginnings, the latter part of 2008 and the beginnings of January. Remember when I warned the then government not to chase CCC out of the country, but to preserve them. Because if you cause them to leave, eventually you have to bring them back. And the startup costs in doing the construction, and we had over 300 workers. I'm making this point to say, if I may call you Brenda, I'm a traditionalist in my view.
Sure.
I like my handles. It's just the way
I like my first name.
Yes. Well, I'll give you both. Miss Batiste or Miss Brenda Batiste. So you get everything on the plate. You get the whole menu and more. Including the appetizer, which is the handle, and then the main meal, and then you'll get some dessert after that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is that I am worried that our population is not being prepared for this tsunami that is arriving. The government has dealt fairly well when you look at the budget that it's structured. Because a budget is essentially an instrument for redistributing wealth. And the government has redistributed that wealth in favor of the poor, working, and underprivileged, while at the same time creating the intake of oxygen for businesses to revive and for the economy, and there's some measure of growth that's taking place. So the government has had to subsidize heavily quite a number of things, right? I have my doubts whether this economy, I mean, when the United States is balling over inflation, and Europe is balling over inflation, and we are a heavy use flour consumption. People make fish cake, they make bread, everything is literally flour. And when you're not using flour, you're using macaroni. And then remember, our poultry industry already under stress from prices. And essentially, the production of grain goes primarily, or a substantial part of it, goes to producing poultry products, as well as beef and all of that. All of these things, and then the energy issues. We have to be careful that while we give a subsidy, we have to be very careful that we are not financing waste. Right? When energy prices are low, people don't have an incentive to conserve.
Yeah, but
so you'll drive all around the place at subsidized cost, which simply means the government is taking from some parts of its spending in the economy and giving it to people who have vehicles. Well, we will have to do some kind of subsidy for public transport, because public transport feeds into every single aspect of the economy. So when there's high inflation there, Minister Bowen made the point, and he would know because he sees the figures. It may not be possible to maintain that $15 cap
No,
But I was just about to come to you on
Yeah.
that because we spoke about this earlier on this week about that effect on the energy situation in the world that this conflict is having between Ukraine and Russia. And today I was listening and Prime Minister of Britain, Prime Minister, was talking about Europe trying to find a way to not be so dependent on gas from Russia for heating and all of that and so on. And they're looking at alternatives as to where they could get gas from different places and so on. Obviously, trying to deal with the whole issues of the sanctions, because one of the things that is interesting to me in this response to this war, and the US and Europeans not getting physically involved in this war in terms of committing warships.
No, well, they can't.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other aspect is the economic war, the sanctions and what is happening. Now, sanctions on Russia and the oligarchs and the billionaires and so on also will affect the Western economies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when you look at
It
the
will
investments,
drive down the property market in the UK
Yeah, and
because
these
already they're
oligarchs
talking about
have-
selling off the homes. Already they're talking about spitefully to convert
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
homes into places where people can stay.
and these oligarchs have
And-
serious investments in industry and real
Well,
estate. as you just
Senator
indicated.
Diali,
Their
you
wealth-
know,
their wealth is
again, I come back
insane.
to my theme.
Yeah,
I
so
come
it's
back
a-
to my theme of inequality, right? They are now attacking our CBI program, which is a source for financing our capital development.
Yeah.
But do you know, the people who are attacking it, in the UK, for example, they have the largest number of Russian billionaires. It's London they go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They have the largest CBI program in the entire world.
Correct.
In the entire world, the largest CBI program.
And Israel boasts
So it
of
is
having run the best one.
So it is good for them,
It's not good
but
for
not
us.
good for us.
Well, I
In
mean,
other words,
Byron and I was talking about this earlier in the program, and I was saying to my opinion on this CBI thing that they're doing now and trying to shut us down on CBI is an excuse, of course, because
Yeah.
two things is happening in my view. The movement of funds from these capital cities into countries like ours through
ours.
various investment mechanisms. And the other thing is, I think they're using all of this now as an excuse.
Yeah.
Because of what is happening in the world,
Yeah.
to say, no, CBI is a program where these guys will probably run to get some shelter and so on, so we need to lock them down.
And it's not coincidental because they have not said the Caribbean island. Their wording is not the islands with CBI or the territories in the region with CBI. They have paid attention.
Yeah.
They have named the countries that's profiting the most from CBI to shut down by 2025. They've
Right.
named St. Kitts.
Yeah.
They've named St. Kitts in the letter.
Yeah.
They've named Dominica in the letter.
Yeah.
They've named Antigua in the letter. So that's why Gaston Brown got crazy and
Yeah.
started to say,
So-
hello, we're not doing
so
this.
let's understand what's happening
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
understand what's happening here. Because it's all part of the move on the international chessboard. Former colonies like us that border the United States, and I have no doubt in my mind that behind this is Washington, right? Former colonies that border the southern border of the United States, which they consider by virtue of the Monroe Doctrine, because exactly what is happening in Ukraine now by Russia is exactly what the United States has done for years in this part of the world.
Right.
So let's be
Some
clear.
12, some
Right.
12 countries. actually.
Let me just make the point. I mean, war is hell.
Yeah.
And when I turn on my television and I see innocent people, and the way, I mean, I had a slight touch of it during the invasion, and I can tell you. So the normal human being must have a tremendous amount of empathy
Yes.
and sympathy for what's taking place. But this has been a war by design and provocation. It has been a war by design and
Yeah.
provocation, no
But-
doubt
but
about it.
Senator,
But somebody may ask,
So-
Senator Humphrey, and as we, we're talking, and I'm sure people are looking on and say, what is he talking? Who provoked Putin? Somebody may ask
No,
that.
you have got to understand. No. But you see, we have to understand the following. The advent of nuclear weapons in war has changed the entire international dynamics of international relations. Let's be clear on that. We need to recall that the only nation on earth in all of the anthropology and history of human beings on this planet Earth The only nation to have used nuclear weapons against civilians has been the United States, not Russia.
That's correct.
Not Japan.
That's correct.
It has been the United States, right? And when they used those 2 nuclear weapons, there was absolutely no military reason for using it, right? It was to set up a world order in which they sent a clear message to the adversary. This is what will happen to you, right? So the arms race then started.
Right.
Right, the arms race then started. So
To
you
which
got to
they
understand.
benefit?
Right?
Of which they benefit?
Well, yeah, because it drove the economy.
Yes.
It drove the economy, and people make billions of dollars in this arms race. But you've got to understand, and this is not a justification, but this is just an explanation for the reality of the world today.
Right.
You've got to understand that nuclear armed states, right, do not subscribe to the laudable principles of self-determination and independence.
Well, a classic example is Israel.
Right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
part of the world.
Let's be
Yeah,
clear.
classic
Let us be
Classic
clear.
example.
Yeah.
So I understand all the emotions. I
Yeah.
too, I feel it when I
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
But let us be clear
Yeah.
that nuclear powers, and there are 2 major nuclear powers in the world, the United States and Russia. And the United States never observed principles of, I mean, even when you had elections, a la Chile, a la the Benz government in 1954 in Guatemala, popularly elected, free and fair elections, overthrown.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, remember, the elected government was overthrown. Right? Many people don't know this. So I'm making the point that what is happening here is an attempt to rein back regions in the world by dismantling sources of economic income. They prefer to give you loans, they prefer to have you hooked up on loans and so on. And then remember, in this international economic construct, there are 2 breakaway states. China has been able, as a very poor country, in 2 generations or 3 generations, have moved the largest block of humankind out of poverty in the entire history
Correct.
of mankind in this world.
The most millionaires created in
Right?
the pandemic.
They have been able to
China.
do this, so they are a counter block to the influence of the old empires of Europe and its extension, the United States. And when you hear they use this term about international community, don't think we included in it. You know. International communities, Europe, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, right? International community.
The
Yeah, but-
G8.
but-
the
but-
G8.
But this is
So
it.
what the European community is, plus the US.
But that's the irony of the whole thing, and,
Yeah.
and CBI. That's
Yeah.
you know, because the demand for CBI programs is far outstripping the supply of the
Yeah.
countries that
Yeah.
offer, particularly in this region.
And they're coming
Because
from
people
those
are
far
seeing us. I mean, CARICOM just announced they want the Caribbean to remain a zone of peace. And that is not by accident. That is because we're looking to attract more and more people to come and invest and live in this area, so that, you know, it is somebody living in Europe, you don't know when something is going to happen, pandemic, whether it's war, what is happening, and how it's going to affect their lifestyle. And guys with this net worth, high net worth values are looking for opportunities where they can have a life of some level of comfort and ease. So I want to get back to get your opinion on the issue of the preparation of our people in our country. I heard when you spoke about, you know, the 2008 crisis and what Labour did. But, and you know, as we speak now, government has this $15 cap on fuel, and I don't think that will last for long, as you indicated. I am of the view they can't continue. That is a loan. As you say, subsidizing. How long can we do it? Other countries around us, gas is at $20 plus a gallon now. So the issue is, are we preparing ourselves for when, you know, that situation will change?
But
And what is going to happen
Two
to
things are
us?
necessary here, to my mind, right? And I don't claim to have all the details on what the government's plans are. I'm not representing the government here. I'm just giving you my own view, right?
Sure.
2 things are necessary here. First of all, we have to get the people to understand that the consumption patterns must change. In the same way, as we are telling people right now, the dominant strain of the virus is not as deadly as the Delta strain. These pandemics have a lifespan about 3, nearing 4 years, and then it tapers off. It's not going to wipe out all of mankind. No disease has ever done so. right? People will build up natural immunities. And remember, a lot of research. So there'll be new vaccines.
Correct.
Remember this research was compacted based on a lot of prior research. But there will be more research and continuing research. Now we have a tablet you can take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? The Cubans have developed, and I mean, let's take our hats off to our Cuban colleagues. I want to pay a special homage to them. This is a country under tremendous pressure, right? A Caribbean country, and they are moving big time in the world of science. The Cubans now have a nasal spray. If you think you were exposed to COVID, you just spray them in your nose I think it's every 5 hours.
Really?
Yes, man. The Cubans now have that.
Yeah.
But of course, again, the international order has slowed down their approval. You know, they have different ways of, because all of this thing is a fight too. The big multinationals in the United States and England, they want to dominate the market and that kind of stuff. And you heard how they rake in billions of dollars from Brazil and what this was all about until the Chinese vaccine became available, which was then selling cheap or next to nothing and so on. And that broke the price triangulation they imposed on Brazil at the time. While people were dying, they were profiting off of debt. They were profiting off of the debt of people, and they were not undertakers. Right? They were not undertakers. Right? So just to come back a bit, I'm saying I don't know what the internal plans are, but we have, in the same way, as we are now telling people, you have to take personal responsibility, because I think by the 4th of April, all of these restrictions, I can't speak for the government, but where things are headed, and the low rates of infections, in addition to which, we had a significant part of our population naturally exposed. So there's some degree of immunity build up there. How long that would last, that's an unquestionable thing we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the capacity of humankind to confront these challenges is enormous.
Yeah.
We are not going, I know the last day scenario and the
really
doomsayers and so on, they make a lot of money out of frightening people, but this is last days we'll all die. That's never happened, right? But the capacity of the human being to understand his environment and to face challenges is enormous, and we've seen that in all areas. So like in science, we will do it. So there'll be new vaccines, there'll be new stuff taking place and so on. So eventually we could say the end of this pandemic is in sight. However, states are now saying we are not going to pass laws now mandating these things. Your personal responsibility. We have given you all the information. We have given you all the tools. You have a personal responsibility. I'm saying the same thing must happen in the economy. The government cannot continue to keep and will not be able to continue. A barrel now of oil is 140 something.
No, it dropped today. It's under 100 now.
Yeah.
It came down.
Okay.
It came down from the 140. There were actually two
But
crashes.
we don't know the course of this war.
No. But the oil thing have come down because I suspect the futures and what they're looking at here.
Yes. But in any event,
again, these sanctions. That's why I kept
coming
talking
back to
about
that. Yeah.
These sanctions are putting strangulation on Russia and the ability to supply other nations
That's
apart
correct.
from Europe.
And they are living off of the strategic reserves.
Correct.
So
what
the
is
President of the
happening is
United
that
States has
these
released
futures
quite
people
a
are
number of
looking
barrels
at
of
all of
strategic
this.
reserves.
All of this and seeing how,
Right.
and that is depressing the price now, so it's going back down. So
Well, it's going back down, but you're not certain. The point I'm making is here. People have to take responsibility and to learn how to cut consumption. So it's not just lowering price, but it's also to get people to understand they must be more efficient in the use of energy. And they must be. I have not yet seen the Seoul Power Company. I know they have been doing it from time to time low-keyed, but in a period like now, there ought to be a blitzkrieg of information telling people how to reduce their consumption, even though the government is subsidizing. But remember, that subsidy means that money is being taken out of education, money is being taken out of roads, money is being taken out of a whole range of different things in order to put it on this subsidy.
I want to bring in the question of food security, and not limited this to Grenada, but in the region. We saw in 2001, we saw again in 2008 with the global recession, and we're beginning to see it now again in terms of the whole question of food security. As a region, we have not done very well in on this issue. You know, we've had the opportunities, we've had the land space, we've had the population in terms of the technology to do it, but we haven't done it. Why we haven't done it, and what is the strategy going forward? What do you recommend in terms of dealing with this issue?
As you know, when Eric Williams, Forbes, Burnham, and Barrow came together many moons of years ago, they developed a food strategy. And that food strategy was to be centralized in Guyana.
Yeah.
And they were inviting private sector and other people, just come, we'll give you the land, and we will help you with the capital, come in and plant food. But you see, we have been psychologically conditioned to think north, right? And okay, you walk anywhere in town, any day in town, right? Including on a Sunday. And the largest assembly of people is not at the church in Market Hill, you know. It's not in the fruit vendors market, you know. The largest assembly of any single group purchasing from any single supplier is Kentucky.
Correct.
Because we have been conditioned. We have been conditioned. So we are not eating what we're growing, right? In addition to which, because of these scarcities, for example, a pound of Irish potato is 1/20th or thereabout the price of a pound of sweet potato. An Irish potato had to be put on a farm, put in a bag on the farm, brought to the port somewhere in England, in Holland, right, or somewhere in the United States, put on a ship, handled by workers who put it on the boat, take off by workers who take it off the boat. Truckers then take it to the supermarket. The supermarket then put up a markup. All of that. And the price of Irish potato is just about 20% of the price of sweet potato. Now, how do you explain that? And you are a farmer, Baron.
Yeah.
So in a period of scarcity.
Ask me the question, yeah.
In a period of scarcity, people are buying price. They're not only buying price on motor cars. So they're no longer buying new cars. They are buying Japanese reconditioned. And quite frankly, when you look at both of them, you can't tell the difference.
That's correct.
Right? I see fellas with some brand of cars. I wonder how them could afford that. When I look closer, it's a Japanese recondition.
Yeah.
Right? And not only are they buying price with food, with goods, they're also buying price with food, Baron. And unless our farmers get to the point of the things that we can produce that are healthy for us, I mean, must I pay $6 a pound for sweet potato?
But just to listen. But at the same time, you have to understand that in November, December, a 50 kilo, a bag of fertilizer, 50 kg was $74.
I don't know. I'm asking you.
No, but I'm talking about the general price of our local produce.
No, but Barry,
and what is driving it up? It went up 75%. 75% in 3 months.
Stick up in it if I could put this to you.
Yeah.
What fertilizer you put in pawpaw? What fertilizer you put in watermelon? What fertilizer you put in dasheen? Why must a pound of sweet potato cost me $6 a pound?
Well, Chess. Let me.
Explaining the
I want to switch us to politics, because we have to get it.
But
and the time running out.
The cost of input
What
for the local farmer.
What inputs do you put in sweet potato?
Significant.
Well, I'm asking. I don't know.
Fertilizer, labor, it's expensive.
You
have to
potato?
fertilize sweet potato. If you don't fertilize it, you're not going to get
I know for watermelon and so on, the fertilizer.
We have pest and disease. Absolutely, the cost, the average cost of, I told you, 75%. In 3 months.
So what would it take to
do
drive
that?
the prices down or make it more competitive?
Simple. The Windward Islands set up an agricultural importing agency, the same thing that we do pharmaceuticals. Yeah. We can go to places that produce the potash and so on, like Morocco and so, and get them.
But when would we get the gravitas to do things like that? When we're so divided.
I don't know if
as
we'll
you
ever
look
get
at long
the
CBI thing, Ralph Gonzalez on Heroes Day having the worst thing to say about everybody who in the CBI. I mean, when are we going to get a gravitas to do these things? When are we going to come together and say, Let Guyana do rice. Let Grenada do bananas. Let Trinidad do fish. When are we going to do that, Senator Humphrey?
Yeah.
These things sound so lofty.
But I agree with you. We
I'm
move
sorry.
on. But understand that in most cases.
That's another topic we should discuss.
In
So
most cases,
lofty.
in most cases, yes, Senator, the price is determined by the places buying from the farmers, like the supermarket, like the M&IB. They dictate the price to the farmers what they're buying at. Most cases, the farmers don't dictate what
Yeah, but
price is coming
the other side to that argument, a lot of farmers don't understand the cost to produce either. So they will come and say, you know, the market say that tomatoes must sell at $6 a pound, and you ask, well, what it costs for you to put a pound of tomato outside, and they can't tell you because
That is true. But there's a lot of training taking place in
I
this at the
suspect,
same time.
Byron, that a lot of these prices is dependent on the bill that face the farm. Well, let me put it to you this way. There's a farmer and then there's a middleman distributor. Right? The most inflationary prices you find in the economy is in the market.
And we have commodities.
It's a problem.
And
It's a problem.
exactly. There's something to address,
Right?
but we have prices.
So if I go in the market
I go there too.
and Ms. Batiste go in the market after me, they look at me, Chester Humphrey, and they have a bill to pay coming up next week. The cost of that is dependent on how much money I need to raise on the bill. They look at Brenda and they don't know Brenda.
It varies.
She could get away. She could get away with something, especially if she go after lunch and the thing thin out and so on. And they want to go home, they give Brenda at a certain price.
Yeah,
and this is what
Business strategy.
but you see, look, the truth of the matter is, I always believe that the market. Well, this is not the topic because I have some issues with the market.
But before we get into all the political or I know y'all. You see, y'all are really excited. Look at y'all, right?
Where's Mr. Philip?
Before we get into all of it, the thing though is, Senator Humphrey, that it is a security issue.
Yeah.
It is a social issue.
Yeah.
You are asking a single mother of 10. You know, she works for less than $1,000 a month, basic. You know, she has 5 children going to school. When she walks into the supermarket, she's not looking at bulgur and brown long grain rice and all of that. She is going to buy what can feed her 10 children.
You know,
That's
Brenda,
the thing.
Brenda,
And she may not be able to feed them sweet potatoes, which they need.
Brenda, but there's another issue too. Because I go to the supermarket, and when I see the trolley baskets of some of the same people you talk about, I'm amazed. In the old days, we had a couple of tires in the back of the house in which we plant some peppers. We put down something. We had a chicken running someplace there in a coop, right? And you want me to pull out a chicken. Nobody does this anymore.
Because
everybody goes to a
went down the wrong
supermarket
road.
Because it's a status thing.
We got too far away from.
Condition.
We got too far away from.
Do you know, even in suburbia, which looks very much like countryside, people leave there and go to food fair and buy the celery and different things which they could grow in the back of the house.
Senator, but at the same time,
It's a
I must
trip for
point
the
out.
family.
Yeah, I want to point out though that
There's more than the celery,
there
Senator
is-
Humphrey. There's a
there-
trip for the family, then they go off to the beach, they drive to the airport, they go to Esther's
No,
Bar.
these are not
they
people
go
who
to-
drive. These are people who take the bus.
That's okay. Buses, they go where they want to
But
go.
there are programs.
It's more than just celery.
Colleagues, there are programs now that have been promoted and instituted by the government, backyard gardening support, where hundreds of families throughout the island, particularly in rural communities, are given support, technical support also, training by the Food and Nutrition Council in terms of advice on how the preparation of nutritious meal using these local products. So the Ministry of Agriculture, though there are initiatives to addressing, it's not solving all the problems, but there are good initiatives taking place that I know about, and I'm really pleased about
I
it.
must say, there have been a plethora of small mini businesses popping up on the side of the street. The conditions under which they pop up is something that need to be addressed because they pop up in places that makes the traffic very dangerous.
Correct.
The sanitary conditions much wanted, but nonetheless, these are nascent business people. And a lot of it is selling food. I mean, vegetables and tomatoes and that kind of thing. But here again, the pricing. Because when you stop on the side, I was coming from St. Paul's once. I usually go to buy my pudding every Saturday up behind the police station. And I was coming down and I saw a guy with some watermelon in the old Sukabuka place. So I stopped by to get a watermelon. And the man tell me almost $100 for a watermelon. But Chris, I never drive so fast. You know?
You didn't hear good.
Yeah, and everything is by the pump now, right? Everything is by the pump.
I said, but wait a minute. That watermelon had to be able to reverse cancer if I have it for me to pay that kind of money for watermelon.
Maybe the cure for COVID is in that watermelon.
Well,
maybe it is.
So then again, you see, you know,
it's
this is
a
where
problem.
I believe the
It's problematic.
marketing board, and I believe some of the government farms can enter into food production
Yes,
to drive prices down.
Because, Senator Humphrey, you have to agree, just as how we are under threat with all the war in Europe and everything, that food security is not just
Absolutely.
talk.
Yeah.
It is an issue.
And it's real.
And we have to address
very
it.
real.
We
And I
have to
agree with
address
you.
it. We have to
Because the
address it.
galloping prices in the
Yeah.
supermarkets,
We
the
have to
galloping
address it.
price in the supermarkets. And if the prices in the supermarket go up by 30%, in the domestic market it goes up by 60%.
Yeah.
Fellas are now selling.
Yeah.
I used to play cricket with cashew.
Yeah.
And I used to play cricket with lime. Brian, you grew up in them days.
Of course.
Now they have 4 cashew in a bag.
For $5.
The unit of monetary count in this country is no longer $1, you know.
$5.
It's $5.
It's $5.
Just as making an important point because
And
food
that's
security,
why we need to address the
Yeah.
minimum wage, Senator Humphrey.
Yeah.
No, that's another
That's why
complex
we,
situation.
that's why
That's
we need to
another topic
address
for
that.
itself.
Yes, but okay, I realize
Yeah.
you're trying to postpone the topic so we could
No,
get
no, no.
into the hot topic.
That's okay.
Well,
So
I
yes,
told-
we,
I told you, Ms.
to be
Betty.
continued. To be
Minimum wage
I
continued.
will
told
never
you,
keep
Ms.
up with
Betty, the
inflation.
issue with
Yeah.
me, the issue with me was one of invitation. So you need to bring me back so we can discuss these issues.
It seems like the people on the Facebook Live agree. Well, let's see how much they agree with you as we delve
we
into
change
some
the politics
politics.
Brenda,
now.
just to conclude, one point just to make is
Sure.
important because food security is not only the availability of food, it has to be the affordability of food.
That's correct.
Has to
Access,
be
access and affordability.
Affordability.
Yeah,
Critical.
access and affordability.
If you can't afford it,
Making
it
no
doesn't
sense.
matter.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
And this is where
Because the lady with the
marketing
10
board
children
comes
still
in.
need to be able
Yeah,
to
well,
buy
I
those
mean,
This
That's
is where
correct.
marketing
I
board
keep
comes
saying
in.
that simple things. I told a fellow
Why
Senator-
don't you have the Grand Bar Farm, Chris?
Yeah.
And drive prices down by producing food?
Yeah.
But those
Well,
farms
but you
are
see-
being cut up and redistributed
But you see,
within
Very
a-
unproductive.
within
I
a
also
land
think-
use program.
It's one is the last death nail
Yeah.
that went into agriculture.
Yeah,
And my good friend, policy under George Brizan,
yeah,
destroyed our agricultural capacity by splitting it up into uneconomic units
Yeah.
and giving it out to people who never had the capital
Because
access
we didn't
to
train
really
them.
do.
We didn't train them.
yeah.
We didn't train
it's,
them.
It's a bad
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, but
Bad
yeah,
program.
You
We
can't,
didn't train
you can't
them.
be business economic and thing with certain small holdings. It
Well,
doesn't
that's
make
the
sense.
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
The
it's
commercial
bad.
nature of it has to be of a certain critical size.
Right.
But
So,
there is
so,
a,
so, so let's switch to
Longer
politics.
I
term,
agree.
longer
I
term,
agree.
though, Senator Humphrey, everything that is happening in the world, the economic, the growth that's being projected, and all of this. If this continues, all of that is going to be, you know, that's going to be an issue for us, because the war will fundamentally alter all of this if it continues.
And this is why.
It will continue.
This is why, Ms. Batiste, if I may.
And pardon?
This is why, if I may.
Uh-huh.
When I had a choice of aircraft, and I heard there was a lot of rain and thunder showers, I made sure I was on a Liat aircraft. Tried, tested, proved. This is not the time for experimentation. You may require a change of aircraft, but this is not the time to have a brand new aircraft.
I like,
and
I
you
like,
put
I like how you segue
and
me
you
into
put
the
a,
politics.
you put an untrained pilot. And all that we are saying here now, this is not the time for that. And I'm sure the country will agree with me shortly.
So
We
let's
segue into the
let's get
politics.
let's get into the conversations about
That
pilots.
is just my
Let's-
mischievous injection.
So I am quite a mischievous one myself, albeit probably a little more subtle. But I'll be the first to admit.
No, I'm talking purely about aviation.
tell you, I'm not talking about
you're not
aviation.
talking about parachutes?
As we continue to, as we
Sometimes they are necessary, but on military aircraft. I'm talking about a commercial aircraft.
as we talk about professional aircrafts, parachutes, airplanes, let's bring it back to pilots.
Yeah.
And you know, you have an aircraft, you're taking off, the forecast, it really doesn't look good. Many unforeseen.
That's where we are now.
Very, very unforeseen and so on. And you're coming up at a time where the passengers need to decide, you know, where do we go, what happens? And there you have probably 2 aircraft, 2 pilots put before those passengers. I mean, what do you tell them? And the passengers being the
Okay,
people
it's very
of
simple
Grenada
for me.
in this case.
It's very simple for me.
What you tell-
if
what
there's
do you tell
turbulent
them?
weather ahead, and I saw Captain Michael Blackburn on the airport, and he's going onto one plane, and I have a young son that's training to be a pilot, and I see he's sitting down in the captain's seat on the other plane, I wouldn't be a passenger on his plane. I go in with Captain Blackburn.
You know,
Just-
you guys confuse me.
Do you know
all
how
this.
many
yeah.
hours?
Just, yeah.
But do
Kind
you
of
know
thing.
how many
Yeah.
hours? Do you know
Yeah.
your son
I
could be
find
very
we must
skilled?
just get straight down to the
To
thing.
the point, yeah.
Is it that
No,
we have a situation?
Except Brenda,
Yeah.
yes, all of what you're saying is possible,
Uh-huh.
but when you're up here, there are no branches. In other words, if your decision was wrong on judgment, and you're up here, you're in a lot of...
Well, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So
are
I find we need to zoom this thing in.
Right. So we are
and get it
talking
down
about
to-
the choices that the country is faced with.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we're talking about
Right.
That's
the
what I
fact
want
that
to
we
know.
are facing a general election.
Yeah.
General elections, of course, is constitutionally due
Yeah.
in 2023.
Yeah.
So we don't know if we'll have elections 2023 or elections 2022.
Yeah.
But I think already we could say we have elections 2022 based on what we're
Yeah.
seeing. Political parties ramping up their campaigns and so on. And then we have 2 main political parties. There are others on the fringes and so on. And there's some independents. But I think the 2 main ones, that's the New National Party and the NDC, which is the main opposition party, so to speak, although they don't hold a seat in the parliament. They have a leader, a young leader, who has come to the fore. When I said young, I mean politically young. I am not
Yeah.
speaking about the gentleman's age at all. I don't ascribe to ageism and all of that sort of thing. And we have Dr. Mitchell, who's been with us, served for over 30-something years. This is his 5th go around as a political leader of the Indian NP into an election.
Well, he came
and
in
so
90.
folks are comparing.
89 or 87, 88, I think he took office, right? Is it 88? 88 or 89?
So
One of
folks
them
are.
things there.
So those are the pilots. Those are the pilots.
Yeah. But my
Those are the
question,
nameless pilots.
I mean, Senator Humphrey, you have been around in the political arena for many years. You have seen it from all sides, I think.
Yeah.
At one time you were at NDC, one time you were Revolution, and so on and so forth. What is your take on this wrongs of election? And again, we're saying experienced leader versus inexperience, and the crises that we're facing now economically, security-wise, with food and so on and so on. What is your take in terms of how you see this is going to pan out? Because NDC is creating excitement because of the new leadership and the new young cadre of people, versus NNP, tried, tested, and as they say, delivering. What is your view on this and how you see
All right, first
this
of
panning
all,
out?
we are in a period of intergenerational change in the politics. And that intergenerational change impacts on leadership. Right? The National Democratic Congress has been inherently and historically very unstable when it comes to leadership. From its very beginnings.
And that's fact.
Yeah, but that's factual. You
Yeah.
can see it. People have accused what I describe as the progressive forces of creating the instability, but that is just really sheer opportunist propaganda, just meant to smear us. But if you looked at the NDC after it was formed, in the very, very early days, which led to the importation of Mr. Braffett to take over leadership, in its very early formative years, there was internal tensions between different elements that were seeking to lead it, right? And in order to introduce some stability, what I would call a respite was engaged in. And the 2 contending elements settled on bringing in somebody outside that had the prestige. And Mr. Braffett, who was part of the interim American imposed government, was harvested from that arrangement and came in. And if you notice, that instability continued. And even before Mr. Bradford never finished his term, you know. Remember, Mr. Bradford became so fed up
Yeah, he
with
just left.
instability. He decided, look, I was already a retired man. The country needed me after the collapse and the military invasion and the crisis which followed, and I come back and serve. Let me go back into my retirement, and he gave up power.
Yeah, I was
Right?
having a conversation, not to get away from that too much. I was having a conversation, and we were talking about March 13 the other day with some friends, and we were off the view that the time he left the party, we believed that he cost Mr. Brezan the election, because Mr. Brezan didn't have a lot of time to, you know, to transition and move on.
That may have contributed, but George, my old colleague, had a number of critical issues as a leader, right? Because if George didn't go into that alliance, right, and maintain his NDP, George would have been in a government for a long time. But he made some bad calculations and so on, and there were forces. You see, let's be clear on something here, how this politics has evolved. Grenada has always been divided along classes. So you had the plantocracy wielding power under British colonialism and coming out of slavery, and you had the mass of working people, right, which Eric Gairy led in a proletarian revolution in 1951. When the British therefore decided to recede from control of these colonies slowly and introduce certain power structures, what did you have? You had the working class leader, because remember, Gairy first was in the labor movement, and it's through the labor movement he forged links with the ordinary working people, sons and daughters, and that slavery was not too long out of slavery, and we had institutional racism here and so on, where no black person could work in a bank and that kind of thing, and that was captured in Gairy's popular slogan, sung a little vulgar, so you'll excuse me. When the working people used to say, I could never leave Uncle. Uncle Gairy taught me how to wear panty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was captured in that popular statement.
Yeah.
And two political parties emerged. The party of the working class, led by Gairy, and the party of the planters, which was GMP. Now, Gairy's demise after with the coming of the revolution, right? And Gairy's demise. In fact, what the revolution did is that it captured elements from both classes. The GNP was so out of power for so long that many of them aligned and accepted tentatively the leadership of the NJM. Right? So when NJM took power, some of them hung on then. After the collapse of the revolution, the class divide emerged. Those who were Gairy supporters went with Dr. Mitchell, and those who were part of the plantocracy went with the NDC. So essentially what you have is still GMP.
That's the genesis of
That's the whole genesis of the
Okay,
thing.
okay.
And their politics are very much the same. I had belonged to the two major political parties in Grenada following the collapse of the revolution. Right? Following the collapse, I stayed out of the politics, just led the workers' movement. Eventually, I joined, I was invited to join, interestingly, by Tillman Thomas, who asked me to join the party, and I did.
the NDC.
The NDC, yes, and I did. And then subsequently, after the expulsion and all of that stuff, I then joined the NNP. Again, another prime minister asked me, and I went in and so on. And that class characterization is still the same. And the problem that the NDC has, it just cannot read the people, right? But it has had a tumultuous leadership crisis from one to the next, and they've been shuffling. So at one stage they brought in Franca, at another stage they brought in Naz, then they get rid of Naz.
But I want to bring it up now. Clearly, in my view, the election now, how it's been aired, ageism is being introduced, like it or not. Clearly, what is being aired now is that
Youth
versus elderly or senior, whatever.
Sure.
To what extent this would bear out? And a fundamental question: are there any lessons to learn from the revolution?
Yeah.
Which we know had a very youthful approach in its approach there. Is there any relationship there? You see any connection there? Any things we can learn from
No,
there?
it's distinctively.
And to what extent,
distinctively.
how do you foresee this would likely play out?
Well, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
First of all, as I said, we're in this intergenerational change.
Yeah.
Change, yeah.
And the crisis of leadership, while it is more pronounced in the NDC because they've been out of power for so long and they've been shuffling,
Yeah.
and the people who have emerged as leaders has never been inspiring. They've never had the links really with the working people. The working people will not gamble on a change, I can tell you that. And then remember,
That's a very bold statement, Senator Humphrey.
The NDC, well, look, we've seen it. Two 15 zeros is not an easy accomplishment, and it speaks to. And when I listen to how the NDC propaganda goes, and I listen to the lines of attack, well, I don't want to give them advice, so I have to be careful with how
Be honest.
No, I'm being honest, but that's why I tell you I don't want to give them advice.
You could send them the invoice.
That's why I tell you I don't want to give them advice. Quite frankly, if these guys are not careful, they'll get another 15-0. It's on the cards.
But Chester, you've seen...
That'd be healthy for the country, though.
Well, we could debate that because, as I said, we're in a period of intergenerational change.
Yeah.
And like everything else, leaders emerge. They are carried on a wave. That wave gets old. I won't want to tell you my age now, but I have a anniversary date on the 13th of April, right? And people die.
Yeah.
And with that change in generation comes a kind of change in kind of expectation and different things. As I said to you, the problem with the National Democratic Congress. What's their programmatic platform? What are they offering the country? You think people will wake up and go to the polls because somebody look pretty?
But let's go back on NNP and some of the issues that people have commented about it. NNP. It's an old guard. You know, the lack of energy from the guard, whether or not, you know, leadership with them from this guard could continue in this new dispensation in the world and crises that's happening around us. Are they equipped to handle it because they're looking tired, they're getting tired? That is some of the comments you hear.
Yeah, but you see,
the issue here is comparing that now to what people are seeing on the NDC side with the youthful. There may be attractions. So you hear a lot of talk about, is the NNP complacent? Are they taking things for granted?
I can tell you, the NNP is dead serious. And there's no complacency inside the party. I'm there, so I'm telling you. Right? I'm telling you, dead serious.
But you know,
you've got to remember too that
if you look at social media,
in the Grenada
Social
memory,
media is not Grenada.
Yeah, no,
in the Grenada memory, while the revolution was bursting with energy and so on and youth, it was that youth that led us into one of the biggest crises that this country has faced.
That's the way my
So when
question
you
was
listen
going.
So I'm saying to you, do not believe for a moment that the Grenadian masses are dumb. They're not.
Yeah, but
you're right, because over the years from interviewing couple
people at 30 years have no thing about the revolution. 30 years from the 30-year-olds know nothing about the revolution.
Yeah,
and the passion and you and I will have.
The voting pattern in this country is that it is 30s and over that really go to the polls. You know, quite often you're looking for young people. They ain't registered. They didn't come out.
And the question is,
right?
can this leadership
the other
in
thing
NDC
is
energize that?
The other thing is this. Don't for a moment fail to analyze the class character of youth. The people who dominate social media in the main by writing and so on are middle class youth. This government has serious programs, some of it formulated on what our program in the revolution for ordinary working people, children.
So the question
is... And I'm saying to you, they have shown time and time again that they're not going to gamble with that. The other thing is this. Whether we like it or not, the New National Party has done a tremendous amount of programs and things for this country. Every major crisis, since the collapse of the revolution, it was the new National Party in power that had to take this country out of it. We may argue that they weren't very efficient. We may argue, right, that they were not as impactful. But every major crisis, Ivan, Emily, financial crisis, right?
COVID-19.
COVID-19.
Okay.
It was the new National Party under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell that has had to face this, right? Other thing about the new National Party is its internal unity. It's internal unity. They are clear leaders, right? And the new National Party seldom alienate
You mentioned
in any significant degree.
I want to go
its
a
leadership.
particular.
And these are important elements in any
I want to go a
electoral
particular place. You mentioned that when Senator Deali talked about complacency and maybe the energy of the youthful that's following the NDC and so on, and you said that the party is ready, and you said you're inside, so you know they're ready. So political organizations, Jane and Joe Pleb, we don't really know what's going on in there. But in terms of political work, that is what spirals a political party into
And getting
success
people to the
and
polls to
dominance.
vote.
Yeah.
So, Senator Humphrey, having been a part of the machinery of both parties and being a political guru yourself, I would christen you that. What would you say are some of the fundamental differences in both of these parties as it relates to their political work?
Let me show you the differences. And I must stick up in here and to say, and I may not be doing Jenny any good. That is
Jenny Simon?
Jenny Simon,
Yeah.
Jenny Rapier.
Yeah.
I may not be doing her any good because if I associate some of my views with hers or give her any compliments, the way of her former party and my former party works is that she will receive a lot of negatives. She will get some articles
Jenny
in
used
George
to that.
Rome
Jenny
and
good
blah,
to
blah,
go.
blah.
Jenny
Yeah.
good to go. She could take
But
it.
let me tell you something. She's making sense.
Yeah.
Let me give you a typical example of what I talk about the difference. The biggest activity since Mr. Deacon Mitchell, and let me just say I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. We were opponents on the negotiating table. As you know, he led the negotiations for Grenlec, and I have a tremendous amount of respect, so I wouldn't say anything demeaning about him.
Yeah.
I mean, he is my opponent. He's not my enemy. And let's be clear on that.
Yeah, we need to be clear. with
No,
that.
he's
Yeah.
not my enemy.
Yeah.
I
Quite
see no
clear on
enemy.
that.
Yeah.
I see no enemy in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? But he's my opponent.
Yeah.
And obviously,
This-
although I'm not the main boxer, I'm a side boxer. But if you come in the ring, you get a little slap. I might pull back as if I hit him like how they do on these shows, the wrestling shows.
Yes.
I may pull back if I hit in your hand, and then I just towards the end I may
Yeah.
tap you. But he's not my enemy. He's just my opponent.
Right.
But let me give you a typical example of what I speak. The largest event of that party, and we bearing down an election. When it is, I don't know. That's a matter for God and the leader,
Yeah.
right? But we bearing down an election. I think everybody sees that's obvious.
Yeah, you could feel it.
At this stage, you only announce 7 candidates, right? At this stage, your biggest event was a turnout in Carriacou, right? Look at the organization on the side of the NNP. 15 constituencies had more people that entered that boat and assembled up when it landed in Carriacou together with the people from Carriacou who came there. In every constituency, on Sunday gone, some constituencies were joined, others were held singly, right? And in every one of these activities, so they were literally, can't recall now, well, let's say 15 activities because some of them were joined, right? They had far more people attending there than that activity going up there. Now you see the approach. The approach was not to centralize and bring, the approach is, it tells you, because when you see an activity, bear in mind that that motor vehicle is tested in the laboratory. So we are testing to see where our organizational strengths are. Right? When we canvass a list, we want to see who showed up and who didn't. So you're dealing with, look, this is not a race for the election of form prefect. And quite frankly, some of the candidates are students at secondary school, by and large. And I'm not demeaning a secondary school.
That could be
I'm
demeaning.
saying to you that this requires the reservoir experience that this party has. And I tell you, just go back to the news clips of the 15 constituency meetings celebrating our anniversary. Right? The meaning of it is not just we are celebrating, you know. It is an opportunity to test that machinery.
Just let's move things up to the election a bit. Yes.
That's an example
Yeah.
of where experience beats all talk. Experience. And I don't want to sound, boastful. I don't want to, but I can't help but exude the confidence that I have. And that's why I can tell you. If these guys are not careful.
Let's bring this up to the election.
Sure.
What we see now, both parties are formulating, putting their caretakers together. You mentioned the NDC has not only announced, 7 out of 15 so far. So they're behind in this. But clearly, the new National Party, in terms of the activities that you see, conventions, what are the conditions, what specific conditions you're looking at for calling an election?
Well, Byron, no. I mean, let me tell you straight up. I won't answer that question.
Yeah.
No, I'm telling you straight.
What are the indicators?
Listen to me, Byron. Then ask me what date you think we're going to call the election. Then put that question to me, because that's essentially what you're asking me.
Yes.
And I'm saying to you, I won't. I'm being honest with you. I won't answer that question, Byron.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So
put it another way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Byron.
Let me see if you could succeed where
If
he
the
feels.
Prime Minister was to say, you have to give 21 days notice
I
based
think
on
it's
the law.
30 days. Is it?
Anyway,
Yeah.
about a month.
Yeah,
If the
March.
Prime Minister, we
21.
in March,
Yeah.
if the Prime Minister says he wants to have this election early May
Yeah.
or late April or early May based on the time, who benefits? NNP or NDC? Based on where we are now, 7 candidates announced, caretakers by NDC, they'll be scrambling. So the question is, would it be advantageous for the incumbent to say election in May?
But I came here telling you I won't give them advice.
But let's
Okay,
okay. So
but
let me try.
There's a logic.
Let me try.
Let me say, Chris.
Let me try then.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
And I can't answer. Let me put it this way.
Well, we
I
come here
wouldn't
loaded
answer
every
that-
day, you know.
I wouldn't answer the question.
We come here loaded every day, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
I mean, just one of the questions, for example.
No, like,
is-
it's commonsensical. I mean, I'm not a politician.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I am in politics and I'm the incumbent and I'm seeing the state of play with the main opposition person, and based on where they are with candidates and caretakers and so on, I think it's advantageous for me. And understanding that my machinery is probably better oiled and so on, not taking into account financing, I am going to say this is to my advantage. I will call it as soon
There
as
might
I
be other
think.
variables, who knows?
Yeah,
I will
because-
make a comment and it will simply be no comment.
So
Let me
enough.
ask a question though, Senator
Sure.
Humphrey. Let me ask you this. Elections, are about people, about messaging, exciting us, and so on. And I'm a marketer primarily, and I'm big on messaging. I like to read, I like to observe, I like to pay attention.
That I noticed.
And messaging, what the messaging from both of these parties. You get to try tested, delivered from the NNP, they're ramping up. But in terms of a broader message, other than change and some blurbs and spots of things, how important is messaging at this time? We are at attention. The general public, you have a captive audience. You have some people who are, yes, they want to see change.
Look at
Change
the
excites them. And there are people who would probably like to stay the course. Where is the messaging?
Yeah.
Well, look at our messages. It's to be found in the
And I'm
statement.
talking two parties.
No. It's to be found in our statement. And our statement, tried,
Tested and delivered.
tried,
Yeah.
right? And we've been tried. All the major economic shocks and difficulties that this country has faced, where we had over 60%, between 70% of our housing stock destroyed. This country was completely flattened, right? And it was the leadership of the new National Party under Dr. Mitchell that brought us back.
Just the two elections ago, starting from the last one certainly.
That's
the-
one messaging you
2013.
give me. That's one you give me there. Piece of one.
Yes?
We have two main parties.
Yes,
The NDC
delivering.
messaging.
The NDC message, they've gone back to the message of 2008,
Yeah.
which was essentially formulated by a few of us then. Although I hear all kind of Josephs claiming, I don't know if it's a Joseph in the stable, claiming credit for things that they know not about,
Yeah.
but that's a different matter.
Yes, it is. Let's move on.
So they've gone back to change. Remember that? Remember they had a change theme. They've gone back to a change theme. And I suspect it is the only time in the history when they could point to some success. Because they have spent more time out of power than in power.
Yeah.
So that I understand. But as I said, in politics, politics is about people.
Just the OAS observer for both elections past came with some clear recommendations. One, for example,
Recommendations which they made when NDC was in power too.
oh, yeah, okay, but one of them clearly is election financing, you know, among others. I mean, have we seen any adjustment in terms of the electoral office of the government addressing any of those recommendations made?
Well, as I tell you, I can't speak for the government. What I do know is all of those recommendations made by the OAS are just duplications of what was made. So they may have made those duplications, they may have made those recommendations not only in 2018, they made it in 2013, they made it in 2008 when NDC was in power, and nothing has been done. So it would seem to me that the only time the issue of campaign financing arises is when you're in opposition.
Yeah, and I don't think that will ever change.
Well, but I tell you, the
big
opposition party, the opposition party, the opposition party was in office between 2008 and 2013.
And it made no
You
change.
remember the incident when a certain sum of money entered the account of a certain person, right? And how the thing was revealed and all of that? No. And their campaign theme then was transparency, honesty, and accountability. Yet that money which entered into a particular account was never transparent. They had the opportunity to implement all of the recommendations made by the same OAS, because all these recommendations are not new. And the only time they become instant, the only time they become of the moment, is when a political party is in opposition.
Right. Before we go, let's
On both
talk about.
sides.
Never like to do the personalities bit of
Sure.
pitting people against people. I guess we get to that at some point when candidates are officially announced and all of that. But the question for you, though, Senator Humphrey, is as the nation awaits and anticipates and feel that this thing is going to happen anytime soon. We are in election mode. For the political parties, help us understand. So the candidates that the NDC have announced, the caretakers and so on, that the NNP have announced, at this juncture, is it likely that you're strategizing in your party, whichever party, and you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm not so sure about Brenda. I may have done some additional work, I may have done some things, and there might be Chris might be emerging as the person. Are we likely to see any of that happen during this time?
Well, I think each political, at the end of the day, the elections come down to individuals. Yes, an individual would have the support of the party and so on and so on, and people may vote party, but at the end of the day, you have to be electable.
Yeah, how people feel.
You have to be electable.
Yeah, you have to be.
Because when I was on the other side and defeated, well, let's consider two things. In 2003, the NP lost the popular vote. And it was a technical foul-up by my good friend and comrade George Prime that allowed them to escape with the 6 votes.
6 or 7?
Six
Oh, yeah,
votes.
6 in carriacou.
Remember I held up the string in the parliament
Yeah.
at the time?
I remember that. I remember you for so many things.
So, and then in 2008, game over.
Right.
Right? At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, because it will boil down to the candidate. You have to ask yourself, well, which seats are they going to win? Which seats are you going to lose?
Right. And
All
that's where that comes
And
critical.
that's where
whether
that-
me or Chris go forward.
But
Yeah.
whether me or Chris goes forward on that.
And it's
so
a party,
far,
are the parties constantly checking that? Because that's important.
yes, ma'am.
Because how else would you ascend?
but that's correct. Absolutely, the party
Right.
is checking that because remember, so far, there are 3 caretaker candidates on the NDC side, on the NNP side. You have Senator Cox in the South, and I think he will do well from all the reports I'm hearing. And don't forget, a lot of my members live in the key voting blocks. People who still approach me today, I go to the supermarket and a number of workers who come to me with industrial problems, Chris, I might as well form a union.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Jess,
Now, it will happen.
I have a
Yeah.
labor question.
No,
for
I
you.
like where he
Yeah,
is. Hold
yeah,
on, stick a
yeah.
pin. Let's
Right?
go.
And from the reports I'm getting, in fact,
Yeah.
I think Cox's initial performance surprised everybody. He's a kind of...
Initial performance.
Yeah, man. Cox was well received in that constituency. I mean, to me,
Okay.
the only other person who do something like that is a kind of Peter David.
Well, he's certainly a doer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
certainly a kind
implementation
of Peter
for
David.
PSIP for the government
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
sadly lacking, and since
Huh?
he came on,
Yeah.
he has gotten a lot of things implemented.
Well, I'm telling you,
So
I mean,
he's a doer.
the amount of programs this guy have in the Ministry of Works there, we had to bring in about 5 or 6 engineers from Cuba just to be able to meet the capacity needs.
But what about Nimrod?
Yeah.
Huh?
What about
No, man,
Nimrod?
Nimrod making ground. And, well, a lot depends,
Nimrod Oliver, that's
Yeah, man.
St. George Northeast.
Oh, yes, man. Nimrod is on the
Oh,
ground
NDC has
on
not
a
announced
daily
anybody
basis.
for Northeast
On a
yet.
daily basis. Well, there's a toss-up there. I understand former colleague Tobias is a potential there. I don't know.
With not
Whether
with
he
the
goes
NDC?
whether he goes
I
an
don't know what's
independent.
I don't know what is the hold-up, but at this stage, I would have thought that would have been settled at my
And
mind.
the other one is St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's West.
West.
Yeah.
Yes. So, as I said to you before, let me put it to you this way, all right? In St. Patrick, in St. George's Northeast, there will be few, if any at all, migration away from NNP. Right? And I want to repeat that. There will be few, if any. That's just my assessment. And I'm not casting any aspersion.
NNP have
on
their
the-
15,
Yeah, NNP has
Please.
15 people.
Yeah.
in place.
right, with the 3
Well, but
caretakers
but
plus.
there's an internal system based on the Constitution where they still have to make an appearance before a selection committee.
Okay, the existing
Right.
candidates.
The existing candidates and so on and so on and so on and so forth.
Right.
And that process is
It's
very
complete
much
or
advanced.
it's still...
Yeah.
it's-
The
Very
ND
much advanced.
The NDC
Okay.
seems to be very excited about St. David and the prospect that
They have
there
been,
could be a
they have
very...
been for the last 2 elections.
No, this is a serious question. Yeah.
Well, I'm giving you a serious answer. They have been for the last 2 elections.
They seem to be very excited about St. David and whatever prospects and whatever they're feeling there. And also the addition of Dickon Mitchell, the political leader, going in there. And whether we like it or not, he does have the likability factor. So that too. So they seem to be a bit excited about that. Do you think there's any real, any concerns, any real merit there?
Brenda, when I was a kid, one of my greatest excitements was a simple toy made from a thing called a reel of thread. It was a wooden reel. And when that thread is finished, and I used to go behind my grandmother back and string it out. So make sure it finished. And she threw away the reel. I will recover that reel, and with a rubber band, a piece of candle, and a stick, I would make a self-propelling thing. And I was very excited by that. So it's one thing to be excited, but if you look at St. David's, and it's strategic, it gets the largest block of housing. There's significant capital development there that's taking place there that's going to create quality jobs for people in all areas. It's going to create a market for the farmers in that area there. It's going to create a market for tourist guides to think people around. It's going to create a market for the local craft industry. There are two major, you think that has been placed there by guests? The largest block of housing. Recall, the People's Republic of China did 654 housing units for the NDC. And they were incapable of giving out a single. Those housing units were finished almost a year before the election. And they had the power to call the election, talking about 2008 to 2013. Because the election date was in the hands of Mr. Tillman Thomas. Right? The People's Republic of China gave them 654 housing units, and they could not deliver a single one. Right? So all I'm saying to you is, I hear you about youth, I hear you about excitement, right? But people, Grenadian people,
Sticking on St.
don't
David's,
vote for Old Town.
what is your impression of the persuader issue? He's a deputy leader of the party. You've heard it mentioned in the public that it doesn't seem as a deputy leader he's good enough to represent a constituency.
Well, there's something I read that made me laugh, and every time I think about it, I laugh again. So it's one of those perpetual humorous things. I believe it was written by Hamlet. I'm not sure where I read it. It says, it is the first time that you have a leader of a cricket team who couldn't be the captain.
Or the deputy leader can't make the team.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the
That's
deputy
the first
can't
time they
make
had the deputy captain
Can't make the team.
of a cricket team can't make the team.
Yeah.
And it tells you, this is what I say to you, that in the very genetics of the NDC is the way they treat people. So he became, and I mean, Persuader's a good friend of mine. I mean, we knew each other. We don't, as I say, he's an opponent, but not an enemy. And I think Persuader will see that. We've never lost touch with each other. We're very congenial. We respect each other. I mean, he was in the Ministry of Labor. Yeah, man, he's a very nice guy. Very, 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 very nice. What I would consider a genuine Grenadian. You know, I mean, people like that, like how me and you go down Byron. You know what I'm saying? Right.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, this guy has been just isolated. In politics, you have to build connectivity, especially when you're starting from where you are. You've had a consistent leadership crisis, right? How many leaders you've shuffled out? I mean, I've not seen Sister Franca, a woman that I have a tremendous time for.
Yeah.
Right, because give her what belonged to her. I thought she performed as a very credible and very good Minister of Education. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where is she? She's just completely thrown on the side. Nobody can hear about her. My good friend Glenn Noel, you know, and all the tensions. My erstwhile colleague Lingham Samuel, all the stories that we're hearing about him. In other words, given where you are, you don't need enemies. What you need is friends. Everybody is of value.
Intergenerational.
Intergenerational.
But is it wrong, or is it political folly to try at this time to craft your own path?
Well, yes, you must. But you see, and this is where I tell you, experience. But you have to. All right. Everybody knows my history of fierce fight with Dr. Mitchell and the New National Party. It's not something hidden. It's there in the annals of history. Can't be written off. We were never personal with each other. That's one thing. We were never personal about each other.
We thought
and
so.
No. We've never had, never. If you notice, I was on a Edu-Frederick program once where some things were said very disparaging along racial lines. Well, I shouldn't call the gentleman name. Something was said very disparaging along racial lines, and I threatened to walk off the program if this was ever repeated and an apology wasn't issued. Right? Because it's not personal to me. You know, it's not personal to me. It's a policy issue to me. Right? When the concept was floated of Project Grenada, and Dr. Mitchell bought into the project.
What is Project Grenada?
Project Grenada is simply this. Byron and I, revolutionaries, He was in the Ministry of Works as permanent secretary. He was a militia fighter. Right? He participated in the war. Yes?
Never tell us that part.
Yeah? Right now, he heads up a project that deals exclusively with helping people out of poverty.
Correct.
So Project Grenada is a concept in which we do for our country and don't let the existing politics determine how you engage. That is how Project Grenada is. You do for your country. So for example...
Is it an aspiration or would it
no,
never be a reality?
Well, let me give you the reality. For years, we have been fighting to get the removal of income tax and severance pay. Chris knows the details. Right? When NDC came in office, I begged, I cajoled, I creeped. Right? I used my tongue, and you know where, to try and get it. Nothing was done. The nearest they came is on a proposal put by Chris. I think they give it for 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? And then they reinstate it. At a time when we were losing jobs, the banks were closing, businesses were failing, workers were going home. And I pleaded, let the workers go home with all of the compensation achieved for them by the trade union.
As a head of TAU and a member of the NDC and a supporter of the NDC government, why did you not cajole or... I'm going a place. Why did you not cajole? Why did you not forcefully? Why did you not, however, try to get the NDC to settle the pension issue?
Well, I comment to that. Because it was through my instrumentality, with the abling support and the enthusiastic support of Madonna, right? And when Madonna left Adrian Francis, right? That we brought a constitutional case, because, well, let me put it to you. When I came out of prison in 2006, in 1986, sorry, I went to see Basil Harford because he had made an appeal for my release. And one of the first things I drew to Basil's attention after thanking him for what he done was for us to address the pension issue. And I tried, but you know, TAU was always had a very small contingent of people. And they were mainly in the vector control and in Princess Alice Hospital, because we were dealing
in the government service.
In the government service.
So
the block of the workers belong to the PWU.
Right.
Okay.
Yet, in the fight for the restoration of pension, TAU paid 1/3 the cost. We carried the costs for the non-commissioned officers and for the prison officers. And we carried 1/3 the cost. We paid the same amount of money as PW and teachers paid. Right? It was me who insisted that we should use Francis Alexis. And we got Francis and we won that case. And NDC was in office. We won that case and we could not get NDC. But there were some other internal issues which not everything in life you need to poke.
You put it in your memoirs.
Yeah. And there are some other issues, but we did try. Right? We did try. And the matter, there was thought of the matter going on appeal. Right? Well, then the election came, NDC out of office, and then the New National Party came in. In August of 2011, the executive of TAU for the first time met with the executive of the NNP. And we made 27 demands in that meeting.
27?
27 demands. As a matter of fact, those demands ended up in the manifesto of the NNP.
Really?
Leading George Worm to accuse me of writing the NNP manifesto. But we had 27 demands. Amongst those demands were, first of all, the return of all the dismissed workers in Lotto.
Right.
All the women workers who were dismissed because they complain of sexual harassment. This is under NDC, you know.
Yeah.
They complain of sexual harassment and they were dismissed for that. And the sexual harassment complaint was real. The sexual harassment complaint was real. There was evidence there. The ombudsman had the evidence. And when they appointed a person from the legal affairs to investigate, the person said there is a case for a criminal complaint to be made. Yet, the workers were never reinstated. So we demanded that all these workers be reinstated and be paid their almost 2 years' salary and be paid their almost 2 years' bonuses with no loss of benefits was amongst the demand. Another one of those demands was the reinstatement of government pensions. And do you know, when the NNP won the election, I learned that the matter was being discussed in the cabinet, and the cabinet had taken a decision to appeal. And I went immediately to the Prime Minister. All of that was reversed, and he made it public policy that they would restore pensions. And notwithstanding what my erstwhile colleagues in the trade union is saying, in accordance with the agreement signed, and I could talk to you over that and show you empirically in that memorandum of understanding, pensions have been restored. The 1958 pension, which was won by a constitutional motion on behalf of Ms. Armstrong, was reinstated by the government of Grenada. And they went further, because remember, the Validation Act of 1985, introduced then by the Blaze NNP, right, validated the laws that were passed by the PRG, because then there was a valid parliament. So what has happened is this: the pension that you are entitled to is the pension in place when you join the public service. That's the Constitution. So the 1958 pension, by validating the Pension Validation Act, I think it's the 22nd of February 1985, validated the amendment.
But why are the unions not on board with this? That's the question, though.
You're taking me down a road which I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah, we need
and
to.
the other question, briefly, Jess, is that an election period is usually an opportunist time for unions to go forward with their demands. And is you in your opinion, is this happening? Do you see a surge in?
Well, I don't know. What I know is that there is a signed agreement which expires on the 31st of December 2022.
Okay.
That's what I know. So I don't know the other union issues. So, for example, the so-called dock pay issue, that matter is best resolved by a court of law. The unions have taken out the pension issue and gone to the court with it, so that's tied up in the court and nothing is happening there. But just let me say, the commitment that the government made of ensuring that every public officer, that is those who joined the service after the 22nd of February 1985, if you join the service after the 22nd of February 1985, you are not entitled to the 1958 pension.
Okay.
And that's law. I don't care how they jump low, they jump high. A court will rule on that. But what I'm telling you here is factual.
Right.
In the same way as I told workers, they didn't want to hear it. In fact, Madonna told them. Right? And what is amazing, there are people leading the trade union movement who knows if you go on strike, you withdraw your labor, an employer is under no obligation to pay you. We paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars in the brewery strike. So to formulate this, that they dock your pay, I mean, it's a wrong nomenclature in the trade union movement. Let me just let me clarify this once and for all.
Okay, we're getting ready to wrap.
Pay is docked when pay is earned. Yeah. Right? So if I came to work and I did overtime, and Chris did not pay me my overtime, then he docked my pay.
Yeah.
Or if for something he take out money from me, he docked my pay. But for your pay to be docked, you have to earn it. Right? And so there is no docking of pay. You called a strike and you made it public. And you stated the purpose. You said for rest and reflection. There is no such provision, either in the collective agreement or in the staff orders or anywhere in the Constitution. No way in any collective agreement, no part of the world, and there's not a single man, dead or alive, who has negotiated more contracts than me.
Okay.
There is any provision for staying away from work, for rest, and no. And let me tell you where this thing is headed. When Kaji took the matter to court, recognizing that there was a weakness in his arguments, he tried to attach the Public Service Commission so as to make it look as if it was a disciplinary issue. Well, the court, but you had to apply for leave for the court to do that. The court threw it out. So on that issue, bearing down, the best position to take, and I have done it several times, Chris can tell you, I have come to employers and beg. The way I help a worker who has done something wrong, where the evidence is overwhelming against him, if I come into Chris' office, strutting my muscles and cussing and so on, I can't help the worker that way.
Yeah.
How I can help the worker is to maintain a nice relationship with Chris. So we go and play badminton and so on. We have a couple beers. We have a nice relationship.
That's what badminton
Chris,
was
that
about
actually
all these
happens,
years.
right?
We talk real nice and so on. He could call me and everything. So that when a worker does something wrong, I could go to Chris quietly
Right.
and say, well, look, you
It's
know,
always
boy,
about relationships.
it's always about
Yeah.
relationships.
And Senator Humphrey, we need to be careful in Grenada because Grenada is too small and we are allowing ourselves to get really crazy with the green and the yellow, and so many relationships are being destroyed.
No, but you see,
Yeah.
them, well, green and yellow,
we
yes.
can't sustain this.
Yeah.
How would we work together?
Well, I mean,
How would Project Grenada be really
Senator
realized?
Humphrey was clear tonight,
Yeah,
you're
you
my
know?
opponent, you're not my enemy.
Well, you see, he has
That's
that
friends.
maturity.
That's a big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Big.
Well, he can tell you about the relationship between me and Ambrose, and I'm so sad he wasn't here tonight. There is no
The
two
whole
people closer
island-
together.
the whole
There's
island was
but he
looking
can tell
forward
you,
to both of
when
you.
me and Ambrose have a tussle, we end up on the badminton court laughing and giggling, and it's never personal.
But you are two very gifted Grenadians.
Yeah, it's
and
nothing
some of two
personal.
are the
He's
best sons
representing the
ever.
port, I'm representing the worker.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't show up tonight, but he would show up by himself and
Yeah.
have his own time as well.
Yeah.
Good night, Mr. Philip. I know you're listening or you're watching. I don't know what happened, but you'll tell me what happened. I know you'll
So
tell
I
me
think
what
we strayed a bit, I don't know.
No, we
No,
didn't
no,
stray,
no.
Senator
That's right.
Humphrey.
That's
You
where
were
we were.
on. You were on.
On.
We didn't stray.
He had no straight.
You always say what you want to say, so
Yeah.
we really didn't stray. But we have to leave. I'd like to thank
Yeah.
you so much. And yes, we missed Mr. Philip because that was going to be something exciting.
Yeah.
Look forward to. Don't worry, we'll have you two back together.
But as I tell you,
at
it's an
some
invitation.
point.
Anytime you call me, I'll come.
Yes, so we would have to leave it here. Still see.
Thank you very much.
The viewers are still here with us, so I guess you were enough excitement for
Yeah.
them, right? Always a handful. But before we leave, though, this is it for Dr. Mitchell. Is this it? Do you get the feeling that this is it?
I get that feeling.
You get that
I
feeling,
get that feeling. Remember, the gentleman is a very astute politician.
without saying.
All right, he has a keen sense for what's happening on the ground, and in small states, political leadership is quite exhausting in small states. I mean, when you're the president of the United States, you have an army of public servants and advisors, fellows you recruit from think tanks and the universities that's formulating policy and doing this, and you have your different departments, an enormous array of money. So a president could go every weekend and play golf. Right? And when he goes to play golf, there's so much security, ordinary men and women don't see him. But when you're the prime minister of a small island state like ours, first of all, when he goes to play cricket, he's going to play cricket in Tibaye. Right? The village comes out, the prime minister going to be, everybody wants to see him, everybody has a problem.
Yeah.
The state has a more engaging role to play because the only source of resources to address issues of poverty is the state. The private sector businesses from the state, no matter what Chris and them say. Without the state, a lot of private sector will follow.
We
Right?
have to create an enabling environment for us to function.
But
Yes.
it's more than environment.
The
You all
enabling.
want an enabling environment and you want tax revenue too. And you're upset when something is done for the ordinary man. So I give the daughter of a working mother a little Imani training and I give her a little subsidy to keep, and you decry that and you think that, right? You're not talking about the big tax holidays that you all get and blah, 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 blah. You know, so we have to do something for working people. You know, and I'm saying that Dr. Mitchell, it's a long run. He's been around a long, and no doubt, I don't care who you are, you've got to be tired,
Yeah.
emotionally tired. But he said it,
Yes.
and I will urge people, give him a big send-off. One more for the road.
The other Mitchell doesn't seem to be tired at all.
Yeah.
Huh?
The other Mitchell.
Well, yeah, but it's two ways
in
to...
the island a little further out.
Other Mitchell. island further up.
St. Vincent Mitchell,
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be. Ralph Gonzalez, I should say.
Ralph.
Oh, no,
Oh,
James
no.
Mitchell has
James,
passed.
yeah.
Passed,
Sorry,
yeah.
Ralph
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be there.
I didn't know you were in the business of invoking the dead.
It's
I'll
on
probably
that,
try.
yeah, this is
I didn't make
it.
it.
This is it. On that note. On that note, yes. No, we're not going down that road. Thank you so much, Senator Humphrey.
At any time.
All right, viewers and listeners, so you are all geared up for that keen duel between Mr. Ambrose Phillip and Senator Humphrey. Mr. Phillip was supposed to join us by Zoom. Knowing Mr. Phillip, there had to be something why he couldn't join us. He's not the type not to show up for an engagement. We promise that we will have them. We must have them on for you sometime in the future. That sort of richness and so on amongst the citizens that we still have with us, we should still be able to enjoy it, to learn from it. And we trust that this evening, some of the things that you heard here, especially to you, the younger ones listening on, his perspectives and historical context on the war and all of that, and just how it's going to impact, and the historical context of pensions and coming up the road, and of course you will have differences once we get to the politics, we know that, and that is fine. All right, we can disagree but not be disagreeable. All right,
We could be opponents and not enemies.
we could be opponents and not. We
enemies.
can't with Grenada, is too small.
That's the take home this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mr. Campbell, enjoy your
After our date.
enjoy your date. Enjoy
But
your
that dinner
date.
must be cold now, man.
Enjoy your date.
You gotta
I think it
eat
was
that
dinner,
tomorrow.
man. I think it's dancing. Senator Deali, thank you so very much. You danced before you came here.
Yes, I
So
did.
you were the smarter one. Yeah, you're the smarter one. And Senator Humphrey, thank you very, very much. We really
Anytime.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thank you for all you're doing, continuing to serve the nation.
Yeah.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's our program, everyone. Our Perspectives Prime. Of course, we won't be here on Monday, so we put on this special supersized program tonight for you. For our executive producer, Richie Oliver, our director, Blondell George, Nathan Benjamin, who provided our professional streaming services, and our cameraman, Kirk Oliver. I am Brenda Batiste. Have a good evening. If you haven't gotten your tickets for cricket, yeah, get them. And tomorrow evening, the Prime Minister addresses the nation at 8 p.m. Yeah? So make sure you're all tuned in for that. Who knows? No, the bell not ringing. Bell and ringing and no address. All right? We're going to hear something else. So tune in and see what good comes out of that. That's it, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.